You know, babes, I still can't believe the day I ended up being turned into a full-on glam goddess on live television. It all started when I signed up for this new reality show called Fortune's Turn. The concept sounded so fun at first. Spin a giant wheel, win prizes, do silly dares, that sort of thing. I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I didn't read the fine print, though. Apparently, once you were on the show, you couldn't refuse whatever challenge the wheel gave you. If you did, they'd fine you £4,000 for wasting production time. So yeah, backing out wasn't an option. When my episode came around, I was contestant number 3. I remember standing backstage watching the chaos unfold. The first contestant, this tiny girl, got a challenge called Mega Feast. They brought out this huge spread of food, piles of pasta, desserts, everything, and told her she had 20 minutes to eat it all or get slimed. Let's just say she didn't make it. The second contestant, poor guy, ended up in a dog cage covered in flour and eggs for the rest of the show. He sat there for hours, looking miserable while the audience laughed. I remember thinking, okay, Luna, whatever happens, it can't be worse than that. Oh, how wrong I was. When it was my turn, the host called my name and the crowd cheered. The lights were blinding and I tried to smile like I wasn't absolutely terrified. The host asked how I was feeling and I said something stupid like, as long as I don't end up slimed or locked in a cage, I'll be fine. He laughed, the crowd laughed, and then he gestured to the enormous spinning wheel. All right, Luna, he said. When you're ready, give it a spin. The wheel was massive, gold and glittering, with all sorts of prizes and punishments written on it. I took a deep breath and spun it as hard as I could. The audience went wild, cheering and gasping as it slowed down. For a moment, I thought I was going to win the £500,000 jackpot. The pointer was right there, trembling above the big red section. But then, with the cruelest twist of luck, it clicked one space forward. And it landed on a section that read, Full Feminine Transformation. The host grinned like a cat who just found the cream. Oh, we've got a special one tonight, he said. Looks like our lovely Luna's about to get a full glam makeover, live on stage. The audience screamed with laughter and applause while I just stood there frozen, half mortified, half curious. They rolled out what looked like a beauty salon, mirrors, hairdryers, a vanity with brushes and makeup, even a clothing rack filled with pink dresses and heels. I sat down in the salon chair, and before I could even process what was happening, they started working on me. The first thing was hair, long, silky blonde extensions that brushed against my back. They curled them into bouncy waves, and I remember feeling the weight of it, heavy and soft, almost hypnotic. Then came the eyelashes, long, fluffy, and ridiculously dramatic. Every blink felt like a breeze. The nail artist grabbed my hands next, gluing on glossy pink acrylics so long I could barely touch anything. They shimmered under the lights, 10 tiny mirrors flashing every time I moved. Then came the makeup. The stylist was like a magician, foundation, contour, blush, eyeshadow, all blending together into something I didn't even recognize. She lined my lips, filled them in with gloss, and said, There, perfect pout. When she handed me a mirror, I actually gasped. I didn't look like myself anymore. I looked like a doll. A very glam, very pink, slightly terrified doll. They weren't done yet. They brought out a little dress, tight, shiny, pastel pink with a pleated skirt that stopped mid-thigh and matching high-heeled boots. I could barely walk in them, but somehow I managed. When I stepped back onto the stage, the audience went silent for a second. Then they erupted. They couldn't believe I was the same person who'd walked out 10 minutes ago. Even the host was stunned. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced dramatically, meet Luna the lucky loser. Everyone laughed, cheered, and clapped, but honestly, I wasn't even embarrassed anymore. I looked at myself in the mirror they had set up next to the stage, and for the first time, I didn't see a punishment. I saw someone powerful, confident, beautiful. I wasn't pretending to be anything, I was just me. After the show, they told me I'd have to go home like that because the extensions, nails, and makeup were semi-permanent. I remember walking through the city at night, my heels clicking against the pavement, heads turning everywhere I went. And instead of wanting to hide, I held my head a little higher. It was like something inside me had shifted. You know, the funny thing about being transformed against your will on national television is that once the lights go off, the makeup stays on. When the show ended, the studio crew were already packing up, laughing and chatting like nothing huge had happened. Meanwhile, I was standing there in glitter heels, long blonde curls brushing against my shoulders, holding a tiny pink purse instead of my clothes. They promised my original outfit would be mailed back to me within a week. A week. So I had to walk out of that building exactly as I was, dolled up, shiny, and completely visible. The night air hit me the moment I stepped outside. Cold, sharp, and real. It was like waking from a dream and realizing the dream is you. The heels clicked against the pavement, click, 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 louder than my heartbeat. I kept my chin up, trying to act confident, but my legs were trembling. Every streetlight felt like a spotlight. Every reflection in a shop window showed me someone I barely recognized, but somehow she didn't look scared. She looked alive. People stared, of course. A few smiled. One girl gave me a thumbs up as she passed. And then there was a man at the bus stop who just said, "You look incredible." It wasn't creepy. It was simple, sincere. And that single sentence made something inside me melt. By the time I reached the train station, I wasn't even trying to hide anymore. I walked tall. My reflection in the glass doors was strange and beautiful all at once, like meeting a twin I'd never known I had. On the train, people glanced, then looked away politely. One little girl whispered to her mum, "She's like a princess," and the mum smiled. That nearly broke me, in a good way. I realized nobody was laughing. Nobody was pointing. The only person who had been judging me was me. When I finally made it home, it was almost midnight. I opened the front door, and my mum, bless her, was waiting with a cup of tea and a grin that could split her face in two. "Oh my God," she said, nearly choking on laughter. "Luna, you look like you just stepped out of a music video." I rolled my eyes but couldn't help laughing, too. We sat at the kitchen table while I tried not to spill my tea with my ridiculously long nails. Mum said, "So, how does it feel?" And I said, "Weirdly right." She smiled softly. "Well, maybe that wheel didn't curse you after all." That night, I slept with my makeup half-smeared, hair fanned across the pillow, still smelling faintly of hairspray and lipstick. And I had the most peaceful sleep I'd had in years. The next few days were even stranger. I couldn't remove the lashes or the hair extensions, so I had no choice but to live with them. The first time I stepped out in daylight, I thought people would laugh. But something surprising happened. Nobody cared. I went to the shop, the post office, even my workplace, a small cafe where I usually worked part-time. My boss did a double take when I walked in. "Luna," he asked, blinking. "Yeah, it's me," I said, smiling awkwardly. He just laughed. "Well, as long as you can still work the espresso machine in those nails, you're good." So there I was, serving cappuccinos and pastries while looking like a pop star. And you know what? The tips doubled. Something about being forced into that feminine costume had changed how people saw me. But more importantly, it changed how I saw me. I started noticing how much more confidently I moved, how I actually liked the way my reflection looked when I caught it in the cafe window. A week passed, then two. When the makeup started to fade and the extensions began loosening, I had a choice to take it all off, go back to my normal look, pretend it never happened. But I didn't. I went to a salon instead and had them redo it, this time my way. Not for a show, not for punishment. For me. That day, I told the stylist, "I want to look like myself, but better." She smiled and said, "Sweetheart, I think you already do." Sometimes life surprises you in the quietest ways. For weeks after the show, I thought I was just playing along, keeping the long hair, wearing softer clothes, painting my nails because it was temporary. But somewhere in that time, Luna stopped being an act and started being me. It didn't happen in one big moment. It was a slow, gentle blooming. Like the way dawn sneaks in through your curtains, so subtle you don't notice until the room is filled with light. But still, there was one thing I hadn't done. I hadn't gone out as Luna. Not just to the grocery store or work, I mean really gone out. To a place where I could be seen, talked to, laughed with, and not feel like I had to explain myself. One Friday evening, I sat on my bed, hair in soft curls, phone glowing in my hands. My friend Maddie, who I'd met online in a crossdresser support group, had been messaging me for days. "There's a small LGBTQ plus night at Cafe Azure tomorrow," she'd written. "It's relaxed, not like a big club. Everyone's super nice. Come as yourself, Luna, you'll love it." I stared at her message for 10 minutes before replying with one word: maybe. The next day, I must have changed outfits 20 times. Too casual, too much not enough, too pink, too plain. In the end, I settled on something simple: a soft lilac dress, a denim jacket, nude heels that didn't scream for attention but made me stand a little taller. My long blonde hair framed my face, and my lips shimmered with a pink gloss that caught the light whenever I smiled. I looked in the mirror and whispered, "Okay, Luna, it's just a night out. You can do this." The moment I stepped outside, my heart raced like it was my first day of school all over again. Every car that passed felt like an audience. Every street lamp was a spotlight. But then I saw my reflection in a shop window, tall, elegant, glowing, and something in me clicked. I didn't see Isaac pretending anymore. I saw Luna showing up. When I reached Cafe Azure, my hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped my purse. The front door was painted bright turquoise, a little bell hanging above it. I could hear laughter from inside, soft music, and the hum of voices. I took a deep breath and walked in. Warm light washed over me, golden and safe. There were people everywhere, talking, laughing, hugging. Some dressed flamboyantly, others casually, but all radiating the same quiet confidence that comes from being seen. No one stared, no one whispered. I wasn't out of place here, I was part of it. "Luna." I turned and saw Maddie. She was shorter than I imagined, with dark curls and a grin that could melt anyone's fear away. She rushed over and hugged me before I could even respond. "Oh my God, you look amazing," she said, holding me at arm's length. "You made it." And for the first time in forever, I said it out loud. I did, I really did. She introduced me to her friends, a mix of cross-dressers, trans girls, drag performers, and allies. Everyone had a story. Everyone had scars. But more than that, everyone had joy. We sat together in a little circle, sipping iced drinks and sharing how we'd found ourselves. One girl named Arya said, "It's weird, isn't it? You spend half your life hiding who you are, and the first time you show her to the world, people say you're brave, but really, you're just being." We all nodded, because we knew exactly what she meant. After an hour, Maddie grabbed my hand and said, "Come on, Luna, dance with me." I laughed nervously. "You know I can barely walk in these heels, right?" "Perfect," she grinned. "You'll fit right in." The song was slow, something dreamy. The lights were low and tinted with pink and blue. We moved clumsily at first, giggling every time my heels slipped. But then I started to let go. My body loosened. My heart synced with the music. I wasn't performing. I wasn't faking. I was just living. Halfway through the song, I looked around and realized I wasn't scared anymore. For the first time since that fateful day on the game show stage, I wasn't waiting for someone to laugh or point or call me out. No one did, because here I wasn't a joke. I was just Luna. After the song, I stepped outside for some air. The night was warm, and the city lights shimmered against the pavement. I stood there, my hair brushing my shoulders, the faint scent of vanilla perfume surrounding me. And I smiled. A real, full, unfiltered smile. Maddie came out and stood next to me. "Proud of yourself yet?" she teased. I nodded, tears threatening to spill. "Yeah," I whispered. "For the first time, I think I am." She put her arm around me. "Good, because you belong here, Luna. You always did." That night, when I got home, I didn't rush to remove the makeup or the wig, because they weren't just accessories anymore. They were me. I sat on the edge of my bed, kicked off my heels, and stared at my reflection in the vanity mirror. There she was, the same girl who'd been humiliated on TV, the same one who'd cried and laughed and walked through train stations in heels that didn't fit. And now, she was glowing. I whispered, "You did it." The reflection smiled back, as if to say we did. From that day on, I stopped calling it dressing up. Because Luna wasn't a costume anymore. She was my name, my peace, and my truth. And though it all started as a punishment on a silly game show, it ended up becoming the greatest gift I could have ever received, the gift of knowing who I am.